and good afternoon, everybody. We're excited to welcome you to our electronic plan review webinar. Today we will be introducing the city's new electronic submittal plan review process. I am Julia Dakota, and joining me today is our presenter, Seth Axlim from ePermit Hub, and our staff team members, Renee Martinez, Jackie Lankhorst, Danae Scott, Letitia Esquivel, Kimberly Kruger, Dan Monto, and Steve Wilkinson. So let's go ahead and get started. Seth?
Thank you, Julia. Welcome, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Seth, and I'm going to be presenting to you this afternoon. We are going to introduce you to the digital plan room, which will be incorporated in the SimpliCiTY portal. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so you can see what I'm looking at. So this afternoon, we're going to introduce you to the process that you will now use to digitally submit your plans and documentation for plan review with the City of Moreno Valley. We're going to cover several topics throughout the whole life cycle of a plan review. We're going to start out with, after you submit your initial application, how do you get those initial plans and documents submitted to the city? We'll go through the process of understanding how reviewers will communicate back any comments that they have that may require any corrections for you to submit. And then ultimately, once we have a successful plan review and our plans have been approved, we'll see how we'll receive communication that our plan review is approved and how we can download any approved documentation. And then finally, we'll take a look at a slightly new way to go about submitting any additional submittals after plan approval. So that would relate to any revisions to approved plans, any deferred submittals, or any as-built submissions. This afternoon, I'm going to be using a building and safety permit application as my example that I'm going to be demonstrating with, but everything that you're going to see today applies to all the different departments you may interact with from a digital plan review perspective. So this will apply to fire prevention, land development, planning, and landscape services, all the different departments that you may submit digital plans to. So let's go ahead and get started here. We're actually going to start from an email perspective. You will continue to submit your applications in the SimpliCiTY portal. Staff will review those applications and make sure they get filed as the correct application type. And once they have fully reviewed your application, they will indicate that a submittal of your plans and documents are required to continue with the overall process. Up on the screen, I have an example of the email that you will receive at that step, letting you know that you may have some fees that must be paid. And once those fees are paid, you'll be eligible to go ahead and upload your plans and supporting documentation. Let's take a quick look at this email. The email at the top will have a section that has a brief amount of information about the application that you filed, the address, the application number, the application name, as well as the description. You'll have a link right here in the middle that'll take you back into the SimpliCiTY portal, and that'll allow you to go ahead and pay any fees that might be outstanding. And then once you've paid those fees, you can click on the Click Here link to go ahead and start your plan and document submission. But before I click that, I'm going to point out a couple other resources available to you. There is a digital plan room online guide that the city has put together to help you have available online help to get through the digital plan review process. And additionally, we also have created several video tutorials for you that are brief videos ranging from about 2 to 5 minutes. And depending on what an email that you receive is asking you to do, there will be a corresponding video tutorial taking you through those specific steps. Now on this webinar, like Julia said, we're going to take you through about an hour-and-a-half overview of the whole process. But if it is a couple of weeks until you submit your first digital plans, these little tutorials will give you a quick refresher on exactly how to go step by step through the action that we're asking you to take. Okay, so let's go ahead and click on the click here link. And that took me into the SimpliCiTY portal. This is the same online portal that you've been using for some time now. It might have a slightly different color scheme to it, but it's the same portal that you've been filing your applications, paying fees and things like that. But what we've done is we've added a digital plan submission experience right into the SimpliCiTY portal. So you'll be able to log in here with the same login to SimpliCiTY you've always used. In fact, I was already logged in, but if I happen to be logged out, I'm going to go ahead and log out so that you can see what happens when I click that link when I've logged out. It's going to open up SimpliCiTY, but it's going to take me right to the login page. And you can see right above the login page, it's letting me know that I need to be logged in to access the digital plan room. So I'm going to zoom out here and go ahead and put my username and password in and log in. And once I log in, it's going to take me right back to where that link intended to direct me. So as you can see, we're in the digital plan room for application number 0029. And it brought me into an uploads tab within the digital plan room. So the first thing we're going to do is come down to the first plan review cycle review package. And I'm going to go all the way over to the right. We will see an action column. And under the action column is a link that says resume. So we are going to be submitting all of our plans and supporting documents in something called a review package. And you can think of a review package like a digital envelope. So instead of just giving you an upload screen where you can just upload documents, we're going to give you a 4-step process that you're going to follow to not only upload documents, but also provide us some additional information to help streamline the overall submission process for you. To submit this review package, it's a 4-step process, and we'll keep track of your progress with these breadcrumbs here, numbered 1 through 4, with the current step highlighted in yellow. And as we complete each step, the step will turn green and the active step will turn yellow. So we'll keep track of where we're at. I'll show you as we progress forward. So at step 1 of my plan review cycle number 1 review package, I'm presented with the current name of my package. Notice it is numbered with a cycle number 1. If you go through a first round of plan review and there are outstanding issues that the reviewers are requesting that you correct, you will be submitting your corrections in a cycle number 2 package. So we'll keep our eye out for that as we progress throughout the process. Right below it is a description box that allows me to go ahead and enter in a brief description of the package to be submitted. Okay, so I'll type my description in there and go ahead and click continue. As we can see, step 1 is now turned green. I've moved past that step and I'm currently on step 2 called file processing. Now at step 2, this is your more traditional upload page, and I can go ahead and click browse, and it will give me access to my computer to select where the files are that I want to upload as a part of my submission. So I can select 1 or more files, and it's going to add them to the list right here. And right in the center of the page, it's going to give me a selector to allow me to select a document type for each file. So we're going to ask you what the general nature of the document that you are uploading is. So in our case, I'm going to upload both of these as plan files. So I'll select one of the items from the drop-down list for each document. And then to the right, we'll want to put in our description for each document. So it'll be a brief description of the contents of that specific file. My description in here. Once I'm done adding files, selecting the document type and entering in my description, I can click the Upload and Validate button. When I do that, it's going to go ahead and upload my files, and we'll see they're added to the file list at the bottom here. But notice that they both have a status of validating, that blue label there that says validating. So a part of this digital plan submission solution is that in addition to having you upload those files, we're also going to inspect those files to make sure there aren't any issues with them that would prevent us from moving forward with the plan review. So you're going to get instant feedback if there are any issues. So there's no delays to getting your process started. So you can take immediate action to fix the issues that are found. Now, what kind of issues might we find? Well, the two most common issues that your validation might uncover is one, you've uploaded a file that happens to be corrupted. So something in the creation of that file made that file unusable. I think we've all tried to open up a file, and when it tries to open up, we get a message that says it's corrupted and we can't open it up. So if there's anything that's corrupt within the file, we'll let you know that, and you can go about regenerating that file and uploading it again. And then the other is the file is either encrypted or password protected or both. In that scenario, if it's password protected, only the people that know the password would be able to open that file. And since the system doesn't know the password that you might have put on your file, we can't use that from a plan review perspective. So we'll catch those types of things that would potentially add delay to us being able to review your submission and ultimately route it for plan review. You'll get that immediate notification letting you know that there's something that you can go about correcting. Now, if I look here, it's going to tell me the file was rejected, the reason the file was rejected. And if you want a little bit extra information, you can click on this question mark right here. And on that question mark, it'll provide additional information about what that rejection reason is. Now, once you have gone and gotten new files, if you did indeed have any issues, you can scroll all the way down to the file list at the bottom, and you can click on the trash can icon all the way on the right-hand side. Oops, sorry, my mouse is acting up. Give me 1 second here. There we go. All right, so once you click on the trash can icon, it'll prompt you to make sure you want to delete it. And as you remove it, we can go about uploading a good set of files. Now, when I selected those files the first time, I clicked the Browse button, and it opened up my local computer and allowed me to select my files. I can either do that, or I can drag and drop files directly from my computer right onto the screen. Both options for selecting files will work just fine for you. So this time I've added 4 files. And just as I did before, I need to classify each file as one of these document types. The options in my dropdown are other attachments, plans, signed permit, and supporting documents. From a plan submission, the majority of files that you're going to upload are either going to be plans or supporting documents. So I'm going to select these first 2 as plans and these last 2 as supporting documents. The system is going to require, when you upload any plans or supporting documents, that they be in the PDF file format. So if you try to upload any other file format, it will reject those. So you are required to submit your plans and supporting document in a PDF file format. Now that I've selected my document type, I'm going to go ahead and enter in a description for each file. And I'm going to go ahead and upload and validate, and we'll see they upload, and then the inspection of my files begins. So they'll stay in that blue validating color until they either turn red, like we saw previously, when they were rejected, or they turn green, just like they did just now. Down in the lower right-hand corner, I don't know if you noticed, but this process file button was grayed out until all of my files became validated. So until I have all valid files, I will not be able to move forward in the process. So to finish up step 2 and move forward to step 3, I'm going to go ahead and hit the process files button. And when I do that, I will get a pop-up on the screen here that will show me the progress of my files going through processing. So what is file processing? To streamline the overall plan review process, what we're doing here is we're taking the PDFs that you've uploaded and we are converting them to a web-based format so that the city reviewers will be able to interact and review and comment on your plans and supporting documents right from within their browser. And then when they turn around and communicate back to you any comments they have from the plan review process, you too will be interacting with their comments and their markups on your documents in an interactive fashion right from inside of SimpliCiTY right here. And we'll see that here in a couple of minutes. So in addition to converting your plans and supporting documents to a web-based format, for any files that are containing plans, and you can submit one or more files containing plans, they don't all have to be combined into the same PDF file. In addition, plan files go through one extra step as a part of that file processing. And that extra step happens to be that we are going to take any files containing plans and separate them out into the individual plan sheets. Once we've separated them out into the individual plan sheets, we are going to uniquely identify each page by its sheet number. And the reason we're doing this is from this point going forward, we are going to be versioning your submissions. We're going to be versioning your plans at the page level. And what this allows us to do is support a process called digital slip sheeting. And what that means is, for example, if you submit your initial set of plans and it's a 10-page plan set, it goes through its initial plan review, and plan reviewers only identified issues on 2 of the pages. You'll receive that feedback back from the city. And then when you're ready to resubmit any corrected sheets, you will only be required to submit the 2 sheets that had issues on them that have changed. Now, we identify the sheet numbers from your plans a couple of different ways, and we try to get your sheet numbers in the order of most accurate to get the most accurate extraction of your plan sheet numbers. Now, the first thing we try when we try to identify your plan sheet numbers is we take a look at the PDF file itself, and we look for a table of contents, also known as bookmarks. And I have that here up on the screen. So one of the files I uploaded is this AutoCAD sample file. And here I've got the bookmarks tab open, and we can see that the bookmarks contain sheet numbers and a sheet title. This is the first thing we look at because this is the most accurate way to extract your sheet numbers from your plans. Usually, design software that you're using to draft any of your plans, when you export to PDF, typically has an option that you can check on the export to PDF window that says create bookmarks or create table of contents. And that's the easiest way to include a table of contents with your plan set. If for any reason there is not a table of contents, the next thing we'll do is we will look at the page labels. And if I switch my view here on my PDF from the bookmark view to the thumbnail view, we'll see under each page thumbnail, there is some text, and that is what we're referring to when we look at page labels. So if the sheet number happens to be in the page label, we'll extract it from there. So that's the second thing we'll try. And if the first and second things we try are unsuccessful, then we'll turn our attention to the plan sheets themselves. Several different design software packages, when you export out to a PDF, will include the sheet number as an annotation on the plan sheet itself. So we've trained our system to look for those types of annotations to identify the sheet number, and if found, we'll be able to lift it right off the page itself. And if we're still not successful for those first three things that we try, the last thing we'll do is we'll assume that the plans may have been scanned and are images of the plans. And we've trained our system to know the approximate size and location of the title block of the plans, typically in the lower right-hand corner of the sheet. And we'll zoom our system in on that location and extract all the text from that location. And we'll feed it into the digital plan room and use some logic to try to identify the sheet numbers from all of that text. Some of that logic is things like, is there any text larger than any other text? Is there any text that is bolder than any other text? We've also loaded our system with several standard sheet numbering conventions. And so we'll try to match the pattern of the text to one of those sheet numbering pattern conventions and see if we can identify what the sheet number is. That fourth and last way is typically our least accurate. So we want to make sure that once all of that file processing is complete, that we give you an opportunity to double check what the system extracted for your plan sheets and allow you a chance to make any corrections if needed. And I can do that by hitting the continue button right here. Or we also send you an email when the overall file processing step is done. That looks like this to let you know that your file set processing is complete for a particular application. And you can click this link right here to take you back into step 3. Or you can click the continue button right here to move forward. Either way will take you to the exact same step, which happens to be step 3, sheet versioning. Now that overall file processing typically takes between about 30 seconds to a minute for average size projects. Sometimes it'll be a little bit quicker if it's a smaller upload. Sometimes if you're uploading a much larger project, let's say 10, 20, 30, 40 different documents that you might be submitting for a project, and some of those documents might be quite large in nature, in the hundreds of megabytes, or maybe even hundreds or thousands of pages or plan sheets. In that scenario, it may take more than a minute. It can take probably anywhere between 1 and 5 minutes for much, much larger projects. And that's why we send you an email letting you know when the file processing happens to be complete. Okay, so let's look at the sheet versioning page. As I scroll down here, we're going to see the results of taking the plan sheets apart from any files containing plans. We've added a couple of different data points and resources for you to help you make sure that your submission is going to be accurate. Up top here, we'll let you know how many sheets were identified. And as I scroll down the page, we'll see that each plan sheet is represented by a row in this list here. Now, if I look at some of the columns in this list, the first 2 columns contain thumbnail previews, the first column being the title block preview, the next thumbnail being an overall view of the entire sheet. I can click on either of these thumbnails, and it's going to go ahead and open up that sheet in case I want to zoom in and take a closer look to make sure that my sheet number was identified accurately. As I come to the third column here, it's got a header of sheet number and title. We'll see that it's got a couple of elements under this column. The first line here is going to be the sheet number. And that is where we're going to put the identified sheet number from the file processing step. The next field is going to be the sheet title. Now, if we see a sheet title in the table of contents on the file, we'll extract that and drop that in down here. If we were unsuccessful getting your sheet number from the table of contents, or there was no sheet title in the table of contents, we'll leave this box empty. And you'll notice that it says that it's optional here. So you don't necessarily have to fill it in, but any additional information about your overall plan set will always be helpful to the reviewers to understand the context of each sheet. Right below those two text boxes, we'll see a file name, and this is telling me which file this sheet was extracted from and from what page. So I uploaded two files that were containing plans. The first one is right here, this floor plan file. It was a single sheet, and it did not have a table of contents. In fact, this one actually used that fourth option that I was talking about earlier about how we identify the sheet numbers. And it was able to zoom in on the title block and identify this as A2. If I scroll down to the next in my list, we can see this is the AutoCAD sample. This happens to be the PDF that I brought up in Adobe. And we can see that there's multiple pages in this one. And we can see this is page 1 all the way down through page 11. Now, if I need to make any corrections to sheet numbering, I can come in here and do that directly in these text boxes. And for me to move forward from step 3 and say everything looks good to go to step 4, there's two things that have to be true. One, every sheet has to have a sheet number. And if there isn't one, we'll see a red message here letting me know that a sheet number is required. And then the other thing that has to be true is that every sheet must have a unique sheet number. So if any sheet numbers are duplicated, we'll also see a red message letting us know that this particular sheet has been assigned more than once to additional sheets. So every sheet must have a number, and every sheet must have a unique number. Now, if I try to go ahead and hit continue here, it's going to pop me back up to the top and let me know that an error has occurred. And it's letting me know that those two scenarios have not been met. There's a sheet number missing, and then sheet number S02 has been assigned 2 times. Now I have a relatively small plan set here of 12 sheets, so I can scroll through and try to find those errors. But I also have this button in the upper left-hand corner here available to me. And if I click this button, what it's going to do is it's going to filter out all of the sheets that do not have issues and leave me just with the sheets that require my attention. So once I've filtered out all the good sheets, I can see that, oh, this one needs to have S01, and I can type that in here manually if I'm able to see it from the title block. And down here, I can see, oh, the system must have inadvertently numbered this as S02, but it's really S03. And as soon as I make those corrections, those red messages disappear, and these now become good sheets. So in the scenario that the system during file processing misidentified some of the sheets, I can make that correction manually here. But if I've uploaded multiple files, for example, and there are duplicate sheet numbers in the source files, I may have to go back to step 2. And at step 2, replace one or more of the files with the issue corrected at the source itself. Now, once I've corrected all of my sheets, I can come down here and we'll notice that my continue button has changed to a show all sheets button. It's going to ask me to take a look at all the sheets one more time before I can move forward in the overall process. I'll go ahead and hit continue here. And when I do, steps 1, 2, and 3 are now turned green and are complete. And step 4 is now yellow, and step 4 is titled review. So at step 4, I have the opportunity to see what I'm about to submit. We have a section here called General that's going to let me know the name of the review package I'm about to submit. It still happens to be my Cycle 1 review package. And then I also have a description here that I typed in step 1. And then under the Files section, I can see all the files that I'm about to include in my review package to submit to the city. It's important that I have completed everything I need to do before I hit the Finish button. Because when I hit the Finish button, I'll go ahead and click it here, it's going to submit my package. My review package has now been updated to a status of submitted. And what that means is I can no longer make any changes to my submittal at this time. City staff will have been notified that your package has been submitted, and they will review that package along with your application for completeness. And they may determine that it might be insufficient for a plan review just yet. It might be missing something that's required. There might be information that's missing from your plan files. And they may need to communicate with you to let you know that there's some issues you need to address before they can go ahead and move your application forward for review. If that happens, you'll be notified via email, and I'll show you what that email looks like here. It's going to let me know that your application has additional information being requested. And you're going to want to focus in on the intake comments section right here. After the colon will be the feedback from intake, letting you know what it is you may need to address so we can deem your application complete and move it and route it forward for plan review. So I can read those comments here. And then there's a link right here that says, please return to SimpliCiTY to upload. And I can click on this. And it's going to take me right back into my review package. Now, remember earlier when I hit that Finish button on step 4, my review package became read-only to me, the customer. I can no longer make any changes. But if the city staff initiates this email to you, in sending that email, it has now reopened that package. So you can go back in through the 4-step process and make whatever adjustments it is that is being requested of you. Now, the same message that we saw in the email will display at the top of the screen as a notice here as well. So you'll see it in the email and you'll see it up here as a notice. I'm back here on step 1. And I can go ahead and move forward through my process here. We'll see my files here, and this is where I might need to remove a file and replace it if they're asking me to add some additional information to my plans, for example. Or if they're asking me to add additional documentation, I may just add additional documents on top of what I've already submitted. I'm not going to do that here today, just in the interest of time. But if you add any additional plans on supporting documents or replace any of them, you may need to go through that file processing step again. So when you click continue, you'll get that progress bar that will process your files. And once it's done, you'll be presented with step 3, the sheet versioning step. And at that step, you can review the plans again, just to make sure that they are numbered accurately. We'll go ahead and hit continue. And then I can go ahead and hit finish again, submitting my review package again. And once I hit that finish button, it's officially resubmitted back to the intake team. And those intake specialists will review what it is you did. And if you met their requirements, they'll be able to move it forward and route it and begin plan review for your project. All right, so now is a good time to point out a couple of new things in SimpliCiTY. So I'm going to head back to my home screen here and head over to My Records. When I come into my records, there's always been this action column all the way on the right-hand side in SimpliCiTY. And there you might see things like pay fees due. You might see resume application. With the addition of this new digital plan submission process, we've added a couple of new links that you may see under the action column. Those are additional submittal as well as upload plans. We're going to talk about additional submittal as this relates to after your plans have been approved. So we'll talk about that in this training, but a little bit later down in the agenda. But the other link here happens to say upload plans. Anytime we are waiting on either your initial plan submission or a resubmittal from you, you will see this upload plans link under the actions. And clicking that will take you back into an open review package waiting for that particular submission. Now, if I come across over here and I head in to take a look at one of my applications, when I head in here, this should look familiar. This is the general application detail page. But what we've done is we've added a new menu right here in the middle, in between record info and payments, called Plan Room. And if I pull down that menu, I'm going to see several options here available to me: summary, uploads, issues, conditions, notes, and approved. And if I click on any of those are going to take me into the Plan Room for this particular application. So I'm going to head into the Summary tab, and we'll see that I'm back in the Digital Plan Room, and I landed on the Summary tab. So each of those items in the menu corresponds to one of the tabs in the Plan Room. Now, if I want to go back to the record information screen, I can click that Record Detail button, or if I want to go to any other of the tabs in the Digital Plan Room, I can by just clicking under the menu item here. Now, real quickly, I'll point out what some of these tabs pertain to. So on the Summary tab, this is going to be a high-level snapshot of what's going on with your plan review. So here we're going to have the description of work that you entered as a part of your application, the current status of your plan review, and this is a different status than your overall application status. This status only pertains to the plan review. So the possible statuses are intake. So a project that's in an intake status is when we're waiting for a submittal from you. Once you've submitted it, it'll be in a submitted status like we just did a couple of moments ago. Once it's been routed for review, it will end up in an in review status. At the end of a cycle of plan review, it'll either flip to a not approved or approved status. So if it goes to a not approved status, that means there are some plan review comments that you need to review, respond to, and potentially resubmit some modified documents to address. Approved means your plans have been approved. And ultimately, at the end of your overall project, once a permit closes out or the case closes out, the plan review project will flip to a status of closed. Right below the status, we have the address that you included in your application. And then directly below it, we have a table of review disciplines. Now, what you have here in this table are all the possible review disciplines that could take place depending on the application type that you filed. It doesn't mean that all of these review disciplines are going to take a look at it. That's going to be at the discretion of the city staff when they route your plans and documents for review. So these are all the possible disciplines that it could go to, but they will get selected based on your application and the scope of your application once it gets routed for review. The next column here is the status. So as each of those reviews complete, this column will update with things like revisions required or completed review, just to give you an idea what's going on a discipline by discipline basis. And then the next three columns, as I move to the right here, are tallies of or counts of plan review comments. Now with this digital plan room, what we've done is we've broken down the different types of plan review comments that you might receive into issues, conditions, and notes. Issues are any plan review comments that are going to require you to respond to them with some sort of a resolution narrative as to how you address their comment. And in addition, you may be required to upload a corrected document to further address that plan review comment. So if any disciplines open up any issues as a part of their plan review, then at the end of that plan review cycle, you'll receive notification that you do have issues that you need to address and that revisions or corrections are going to be needed to address those issues. So that's issues. Conditions and notes are any comments that the plan reviewer wants to include, but these comments are not going to lead to a disapproval of your plan review. So conditions are typically comments that are there to bring to your attention, as well as inspectors that may be involved in the process with your project down the road, of something that may need to be addressed at a later time. Notes, very similar to conditions, also will not result in a disapproval of your plan review. And these are going to provide general informational comments, again, for your benefit as well as the inspector's benefit. Now, these may come in the form of straight text-based comments, or they also might be included as markups or red lines on your approved plans that you will download once your plans have become approved. So these columns will tally up how many issues, conditions, and notes you have by discipline. And then down at the bottom, we'll total it up across all of the disciplines. So we have a spot for total number of issues, total number of conditions, and total number of notes. We have a couple of subtotals under the total number of issues, because with issues, there's going to be action that needs to be taken by you to address those issues. So at the end of a cycle, if there are any issues and you get notified that revisions are required to be resubmitted, any issues will now be published, and those will be totaled up under issues in progress with the applicant, meaning that we are now waiting for you to take a look, evaluate them, respond to them, and then upload your resubmittal. Once you complete that entire process, it'll be sent back to the city and then ultimately routed back to the reviewers to review your corrections. And at that point, any of those issues that you have now answered and resubmitted any documents for will now show up under issues in progress with the agency, meaning that those are in review issues to see if they are either going to accept or not accept your corrections based on that next cycle of plan review. And ultimately, once the reviewer accepts your corrections, a total will show up under completed issues right here. So that's a summary tab. We already spent some time on the uploads tab. And the main thing on the uploads tab is you're going to have a list of review packages, and they'll be numbered by the cycle that you're now submitting your documents from within. And then we have issues, conditions, and notes. And there's not much to see here yet because we haven't gone through plan review. We've just submitted our initial package, but you'll see those plan review comments listed on these tabs respectively. And so we'll be able to interact with those right from within SimpliCiTY. We'll return to these three tabs over the next two topics that we're going to cover here during the training. And then all the way on the right, we have an approved tab. And this approved tab is reserved for just where your approved documentation will be posted so that you can easily find it and easily download it. And so that's some of the new links and menus that you might see in SimpliCiTY. Okay, so once your package has been deemed complete and your application has been deemed complete, it will be routed to the reviewers for review. They will each review your plans and supporting documents. And if they have any issues, conditions, or notes that they want to document as a part of the process, they'll do so at that point. And once the last reviewer is all done with their review, if there are any issues that you need to address, you will receive notification via email. And that email is going to look like this. It's going to let you know that for this application number, we have plan review revisions needed. At the top, we'll have that same little block of information about your application. So you can refresh if you don't remember them by application number. You can remember them by either the project name or the address. As we come down here, we'll see a bulleted list that says issues, conditions, and notes. Depending on which one I click on, it will open up that specific tab over in SimpliCiTY. So I'll see a count of how many of each of those comments I have right from that bulleted list right there. Further down, I have a couple of video tutorials available to me. So I have a tutorial about responding to issues. So that's what we're about to do in this demonstration. And then I also have a tutorial about uploading your corrected documentation or your revised plans, if you will. So both of those tutorials will take you through the 2 steps that we're going to go through here on this webinar. And I want to bring your attention to this statement right here that indicates all identified issues will require a brief text response before you're going to be able to submit your revised documents. So for each issue, we're going to be looking for a response narrative as to how you address that issue before you can submit your revised documentation. So let's go ahead and click on the issues list here. When I click on that, it's going to take me right to the issues tab. And now I have multiple issues listed here down in this table. As I look a little bit closer at the table here, I've got a column for discipline. So these are all the different disciplines that have identified issues. I have a title for each of my issues, and that title will typically be a short description of the issue. But when I click on an issue, I'm going to be able to go in and see a fuller description as well as see it within the context of my documentation. So short description in the title there. The status, each issue will have a status, and the status will indicate where that issue is in its overall life cycle. Anytime an issue is in a status of open, it is waiting on you to respond to that issue. Only when an issue is in a status of open is it eligible for your response. So you may see an issue in the status of answered, meaning you've already responded to it. You also might see an issue in the status of accepted, meaning you've already done a resubmittal and the reviewer deemed your correction acceptable. You may see an issue in the status of closed, meaning that issue is no longer applicable. But again, only status or issues in the statuses of open are eligible for you to respond to. As I move left to right here, I have a column here that says attached to. And that column tells me a little bit more about where that issue was identified. Issues can either be attached to a plan sheet, a supporting document, or to the project overall in general. So if I see a sheet number, that issue has to do with a specific page of my plans. If I see a document name, that issue has to do with the supporting document that I uploaded. And if I see blank, then that's going to be a general project issue that's not associated specifically to a particular sheet or a page in one of my supporting documents. That might be just a general thing that you need to address or a general question that they're looking to address, or maybe it's an issue that was found on multiple pages that they're going to use one issue to have you correct it on multiple sheets within the plans. As I scroll right, there's a created by column. I'm just logged in with a test account here, so all of mine say plan room here. But this come Monday, as you start receiving feedback from reviewers via this new process, that created by column is going to have the name of the reviewer that identified the issue. And then we also have some audit columns letting us know when was this issue last updated and who last updated it. On this blue issues bar, all the way on the right, I have a filter button that allows me to filter my issue list down by one or more data points. So if there are multiple folks on your team that might be addressing issues, maybe somebody is responsible for the structural, somebody else is responsible for non-structural, that sort of thing, you can filter down by one or more discipline to filter out any that you will not be addressing as a part of your upload process. And then I can also filter by status. So maybe I want to only see the open issues right here. If I want to extract the issues into a printable format, I can click the print icon and I'll get a printable format in a separate tab with much of the same information as I saw in my issue list. So I will still have the discipline, the status, the title will be represented on the first line of each row in that bold, and the description, which we're about to see when we click on an issue, shows up right below. Under the attached to, I'll see again what the issue is associated with, who created it, and who last updated it. So that happens to be a printable view. And as I come down here in the list, I can also sort by any of these columns as well. So lots of different ways to filter and sort the view of the items that are going to require a response. Now, if I click on one of these issues, it's going to go ahead and open up that issue on the left-hand panel here. And it's also going to open up whatever it happens to be attached to. In this case, it's attached to sheet A2. And when I come in here, I can see that this is a building review issue. Each discipline, if you've noticed, has been assigned a different color. So the label will be that color, as will any associated markups. So if I draw my attention down at the bottom of the sheet here, I'll see some blue markup in the middle here. I also see some red markup, but that red markup has been sent to the background. So any markup associated with the current issue that is open will display in the foreground, and any other markup will display in the background. On the left-hand panel here, I'll see the title of the issue that I saw in my list from the previous screen. Right below, I've got the discipline that identified the issue. Created by will contain the name of the reviewer that identified the issue. And then the description will be anything additional that the reviewer wants to share with you to help you further get to a corrected state with this particular issue. Right below the description, this message indicates that we are expecting a revised document to satisfy this issue. And then over here on the viewer, I can use any of these tools down here to navigate, but ultimately I can use my mouse wheel to zoom if I so choose. Or there is this magnifying glass in the upper right-hand corner of the issue. And if I click that, that'll zoom me to the level that the plan reviewer intended to bring your attention to on the plan sheet. So that's an easy way to get to the applicable area identified on the issue. Now, once I've taken a look at it and had a chance to review it, and I know the direction I'm going to take to rectify the issue, here under the open label, it says applicant's response. And I can click my mouse in here and enter in a response. So here it's always advisable to be as detailed as possible when providing that response narrative. And then once I've entered that in, I can click save. And as soon as I hit save, we'll see that that issue has changed status from open to answered. And that'll help me keep track of both what issues are still outstanding and which issues have I addressed. So now I can go about responding to the rest of these issues. I'm going to zoom in to where the reviewer was. This happens to be a supporting document, not a plan file. And the issue is identified on page 3 of 10. So the issue will take me directly into the specific page where the issue is identified. And then I can come down here to the applicant's response and respond. So I'm almost done with responding to the building review issues. This particular issue, I don't know if you noticed, did not have anything under the attached to over here. So when I click on it, it doesn't open a plan sheet. It does not open up a document. It opens up right here within the plan room, and it's going to still provide me my title, my discipline, who opened it, the details of what I need to address, and then I'll provide my response right here. And when I close that out, it updates to answered. Now I've got a fire issue. So here's an example of the fire markup being in the foreground and the building markup being in the background. So I'll zoom in here on the fire markups, and I can provide my response over here. And then finally, I've got one more issue from planning on this survey. And there's multiple markups associated to this one. So I can review the markups, I can review the title and the description, and then ultimately enter in my response. And now I can see that all my issues are answered. And I also have a notice at the top of the screen here letting me know, since all of your issues are answered, you can return to the Uploads tab to continue submitting your resubmittal. Before I do that, I do want to click on the print icon here one more time and point out, because I've now provided my response on this print view, in addition to the title and the description being available, I will see a section called Last Response. That Last Response section will always have whatever I put in as my response narrative. All right, I'm going to close out of that, and I'm going to head back over to the Uploads tab. And now on the Uploads tab, what I'm going to see here is plan review cycle number 1 is here, and it's accepted, meaning that it's gone through, been accepted for review. But now I have a plan review cycle 2 in a status of new. And if it's in a status of new, it's waiting for me to take the next action. So I can come over and resume cycle number 2. And it's going to enter me into another review package. And I'm sitting on step 1, so I can come in here and enter in my description for step 1. Okay, and then I'll go ahead and hit continue to move forward. Step 2, I'm going to go ahead and select my corrected document. I'm going to select plans. Put my description in and click upload and validate. So that validate will happen regardless of whether it's my initial submission or a correction submission or a revision down the road. It's going to inspect that file to make sure that it is valid. And we're going to go through file processing again. So we're going to convert your plans and supporting documents from the PDF to the web-based format. And then again, we're going to take any plan files apart into the individual sheets, uniquely identify each sheet by sheet number, and then we're going to use that information to be able to version those sheets into your overall plan review project within the system. So it's incredibly important that you keep consistent sheet numbering from submission to submission so that the system can automatically link those sheets together and increment their versioning. Now, right here is a message. I guess that finished processing pretty quickly, but right above that blue bar that was showing you the progress was the message that I mentioned earlier, letting you know that you don't necessarily have to stay on this page, that you will receive an email letting you know when you can go back in. And in addition to receiving that email, we've also set up the system with some gentle reminders to remind you if we're waiting on you to take the next action and you haven't completed that next step, we'll remind you via email that you haven't completed that step. So that pertains to not only when we're waiting on corrections, but also all the way back at the beginning when we're requesting your first submission along with your application. So if we have not received that in a timely manner, you'll hear from us from time to time via email, reminding you to finish your review package. And that email will contain a link that will take you right back into SimpliCiTY and drop you off right where you need to be to continue that process. Once my file is processed, I can go ahead and hit continue to go to step 3. And at step 3, I kept this super simple. I'm only uploading a single sheet. I do not have to upload a full set of plans when I'm submitting my corrections, just the items that changed from a plan's perspective. And we'll see that in my list of all the sheets that were identified, I now have an additional column all the way on the right entitled Previous Version, right over here. And if I see a thumbnail, what that means is the sheet that I submitted was identified in my existing plan set. So we assume that this sheet is going to be submitted as a new version of that existing sheet. So that's what it looks like if it was found, but I'm going to change this to a sheet number not currently in my plan set. So if it does not find an existing sheet in your plan review project, it's going to show up under the previous version column as no previous version. So that may be valid. There might be new sheets being introduced into your plan set. Or if the system maybe didn't grab the number correctly, or maybe your numbering changed. Again, we want you to keep your numbering consistent between versions. Then I could either correct it if it didn't accurately identify it by hand like that, or there's also this magnifying glass here that says search sheets. And if I click that, it's going to present me with all the plan sheets that have been identified already in previous submittals. And I can select the correct sheet this way, and it'll link it all up automatically there for me that way. So I can either handle it by hand, or I can use that search sheets to help me link it up during my resubmittals. Once I'm finished reviewing the sheet versioning step for accuracy, I can click the continue button. And once I click the continue button, I'll land back on my review step. And this is going to look similar to our previous submittal. We've got our general section where I've got the name of my package, which happens to be cycle 2. Here is the description I entered in for my overall package. Here's the list of files that I'm including in my resubmittal. And I do have a new section on my resubmittal called Issues. So in addition to resubmitting any corrected documents, my responses are also going to be grouped in with this review package submittal. So on the bottom, here are the issues that I have marked as answered and provided my narrative response or my response narrative. So these 5 issues are going to be lumped in with my resubmittal here. So once I hit the finish button, I'll get the message that my review package has been received. Staff at the city are notified that the review package has been submitted. It'll be reviewed for completeness, and potentially you may receive an email of any deficiencies before it gets routed for review. So that process will look identical to what I showed you earlier in the training. Or it'll go ahead and be routed for review. And if any of the reviewers either do not accept one of your corrections or find new issues, you'll be prompted with a similar email to this again, and you'll be required to respond to any open issues. Again, only open issues are what you need to respond to, and upload a submittal for the 3rd cycle of plan review. So you'll go through as many cycles as necessary to get your project approved. But once all of that's complete, we can go ahead and fast forward to plan review approval, and I'll be able to show you the next steps as to what happens once your plans are approved. So we're going to fast forward in our process all the way up to plan approval. Now, when your plans are approved, depending on which department you're working with, that may be at permit issuance for building and safety, and may be at a different point for land development, for the different types of cases and applications that you submit there. But regardless of what that point in the process is, we'll see an email that looks similar to the one that I have up on my screen here. So it's going to let you know that the application has been approved. Depending on the department, it might also include some attachments. So again, my example here happens to be in building and safety. So this email, in addition to my approved plans being available for me to download, all happens post-permit issuance. So I attached to this email are my job card as well as my building permit. Same as all the other emails, I got a little blurb here letting me know the address and the application name of my application. And as I come down here, we'll see a bulleted list of download approved documents, view conditions, and view notes. So these are going to take me to the approved, the conditions, and the notes tabs, respectively. Right below here, there might be some additional instructions that I have to pay attention to based on my plan approval. And then, as always, we'll have some video tutorials guiding you through step-by-step how to take the next steps in the overall process. So we've got a tutorial here for downloading approved documents, as well as a tutorial down here for submitting any additional submittals. And what I'm referring to there is revisions to approved plans, submitting your deferred submittals. And when it comes to landscape services, you would also follow this same process for submitting any as-built. So I'm going to go ahead and click on my download approved documents. And when I do that, I'm going to land on the approved tab. And down here, we'll see in the list approved documents. And we'll see that we have 2 different documents. One contains approved plans, and the other contains approved supporting documents. So your plans and your supporting documents that have been approved and stamped will always be in separate files. All the way on the right, I have a button where I can go ahead and download my approved document. And once I've done that, I can show you over here in Adobe what that looks like. So I've got my approved set of plans here. And what I'm looking at is the first page of my approved plans. And similar to issues, having the ability to be associated to plan sheets, supporting documents, or just general at the project level, conditions and notes can also be added at the project level. So if any reviewers have identified any general conditions and notes, those will be inserted at the front of the plan set. So here it inserted a blank page and inserted all of those conditions and notes, and it'll be organized into a 3 vertical column layout. So it's going to list them by discipline. And it's going to go down the first column. And if it gets to the end of the first column, it'll carry over to the middle column and then ultimately to a third column. And if you have comments that spill over into a second page, a second sheet will be inserted into your plan set. So that's where I can find general conditions and notes. And before I scroll down to the next page, I also want to point out that those conditions and notes can also be seen here, and I can click on them and review them interactively. So I have the interactive aspect to these on the conditions and notes tab, or if I'm viewing them from my downloaded PDF of the approved plans, I'll see them on the first page or whatever sheet they may appear on. If I go down to the next sheet, let me zoom in here a little bit. What we'll see in the upper left-hand corner will be the approval stamp for the particular department that this application was filed through. On there, we'll have the date of approval as well as the project number or the permit number and the list of reviewers that approved it. If I scroll right a little bit here, I've got just like a Latin placeholder here. But this is an example of markup that I might see on the plans themselves from a condition or a note. So I'll see that here as well. As I go down to the next page, so the cover sheet will have a larger stamp, and then subsequent sheets will have a slightly smaller stamp, and those will be on every sheet so we can identify which permit number each sheet came from. And so that's how you go about downloading your approved documents. And those are found on the approved tab in the digital plan room. And that's where that link will take you from the email. Now, if I come back to my record detail and I head over to the attachments section, you may already be familiar with the attachments section. That's where a lot of the uploads and downloads happen today within SimpliCiTY. I will also see all the files that I uploaded as a part of my plan review, as well as the approved documents as well. So I can also download my approved documents from this attachments list, but it might be easier just to go and find it just on the approved plans tab, so you don't have to sort through all of the other documents that are already out here that were uploaded as a part of your submittals. Now, once your plans are approved, if you do happen to have to upload any other application or permit related documents, you can click the add button. And if you do that, that's going to take you back into the digital plan room. And I can click on this attachments button right here. And this should look familiar. It's allowing me to upload documents outside of a review package. And if I do that, my only options to upload are non-plan document types. So only non-plan document types would be able to be uploaded this way. Now, if I head back to my list of all my records, what we're going to see and talk about now is how we go about submitting anything else that might require an approval as a part of the process. So for building and safety, how do I submit my deferred submittals? As well as how do I submit any revisions to approved plans? For fire prevention, your additional submittals will be any revisions to approved plans. Same as land development. You may have some revisions on a construction permit. And for landscape services under the special districts tab, when it's time to submit your as-built, you'll use this same process I'm about to show you here as well. Now I can either click on this additional submittal, and I'm only going to see this additional submittal link when my case, my application, my permit is in a status that is post plan review approval. So I see the additional submittal link here, but I will also see a button if I go into the detailed page. So I was pointing out that there's an additional submittal button down at the very bottom when I'm looking at the record, as well as in that action column from my records list. Either one, it doesn't matter which one I click, it's going to take me to the same spot, and it's going to allow me to select which type of additional submittal I want to go through. Now I'm going to pick a revisions to approved plans submittal. But if I picked a deferred submittal, if I picked an as-built, everything that I'm showing you right now applies to all of those different additional submittals. So I'm going to go ahead and click continue application. And there's a very simple form here where I'm going to provide a project name and a description for my submittal. Okay, example of a revision to my approved plans. And then you're going to want to be as detailed as possible. So you're going to want to be as detailed as possible under the detailed description so that staff can clearly understand the nature and the scope of what it is that you're submitting. And I'll go ahead and hit continue. And then I'm all the way at the review step. So that is a very simple form to fill out. So just make sure you provide as much information under the detailed description. And then I'll go ahead and hit continue application. And this is going to take me to a confirmation page. And this confirmation page is similar to the confirmation page you land on when you file an application, a new application at SimpliCiTY, with one small difference. You'll have this upload plans and documents button available to you to kick off submitting any documentation to go along with your additional submittal. So I can click this button, and then I'll just point out in my email here, I also received an email letting me know that a revision request has been received for this particular permit number. And then I can go ahead and click this button right here to head back into SimpliCiTY to go ahead and upload. So whether I click this link in the email, or if I click on this upload plans and documents button, this will also take me to the same spot. So I'm going to click this upload plans and documents button to kick off my review package for my revision to approved plans submittal. Go ahead and hit continue. And this process is pretty much identical to the resubmittal that we went through a couple of minutes ago. I'm going to go ahead and upload and validate. And once it's validated, I'll go ahead and process. And it's incredibly important to keep your sheet numbering consistent for your revisions to approved plans as well, because we will be versioning anything submitted on this revision submission all the way up with previous revisions to approved plans for this permit, as well as the initial submission of the permit itself. So we want to stay consistent in our sheet numbering across the initial submission, any correction submissions, as well as any revision to approved plans submissions. So we'll let that process.
Seth, I'm gonna interrupt you with a question.
Sure.
So what happens if you do have to add a sheet as part of the plan check process?
It'll show up on the next step following file processing with no previous version. And then once it's submitted with its review package to the system, it will be inserted into the plan set as a version 1 of that particular sheet. And the review staff have tools when they're doing their review to be able to identify if something has been submitted as a new, inserted as a new sheet altogether, or has been versioned as a new version of a previous sheet. So that is completely acceptable if that's what's called for the project. And the staff will be able to identify anything that's changed as well as anything that's been inserted as new. Now, once your submission has fully been entered and your review package is submitted, once staff has deemed it acceptable and assessed any fees that might be associated to it, one thing I'll point out is when we submitted our revision request, it was assigned a BPR number. And in the email that we received, it's letting us know that that's just going to be a temporary tracking number until we indeed determine that this revision request is valid, at which point we'll assess the fees and then once paid, ultimately route for review. And then once that happens, your tracking number will be assigned, and that tracking number will be assigned based on whatever record it is that you open that additional submittal from. So in our case, we open it up from the building full residential review number 32, and you'll see that it's been assigned a number of .R.001. And it's assigned that number because this is the first revision after approval that's been submitted. So when the next revision may come in, that would be R002, 003, etc. So revisions to approved plans will be numbered with an R number following the original number that it was opened from. Deferred submittals will be opened and be counted using a D number. So you would see a .D as in Delta, 001, 2, 3. And on the landscape services side, any as-built that'll be submitted will also be numbered with a .AB, alpha beta, as-built, 001. So again, once these submittals have been accepted for review and ultimately have fees assessed or ultimately are routed for review, you'll get notice of the assignment of your tracking number, and it's under that number that you will track that submittal going forward. The actual review process will be the same as your initial plan review. At the end of a cycle, if there are any issues that you need to address, you'll receive notification that there are revisions required. You'll have a link to be able to go look at the issues, respond to any issues in the status of open, upload any required modified documents, and you'll go through as many cycles as necessary to get that additional submittal approved. And ultimately, once your revision, your deferred submittal, once your as-built is approved, you'll get notice that in this case, your revision request for R001 has been approved for permit number 28. As we come down here, it'll let you know your revision's been approved. You may now download. And if you notice, the download link has the original number in parentheses. And the reason was we are going to consolidate all of the approved documentation on the original number, so it's easy for you to maintain, as well as it's easy for any inspectors to access as well. Now, when you download the approved documents, from a plans perspective, what we're going to do is we are going to consolidate the original approved plans with any other approved revisions to approved plans into an overall new approved plan set. So let's go take a look at what one of those look like. I've got one open here in Adobe. And as I scroll down here through, I'm going to zoom in here a little bit. And we'll see that the cover sheet is stamped for my original number, BFR 21-0028. And as I go from page to page, I'll see that this one says 0028. This next one also says 0028. But this is the one that I submitted during my revision to approved plans. And because this one was approved, the newest version of it was approved on R001, the stamp is going to have that R001 number on it. So that when I'm looking at my set of approved plans from the original number, it's very easy for both you as well as the inspector to understand what changed and what changed based on what additional submittal approval. One other thing I want to point out is that the system, when it generates the approved plans, will also insert a table of contents on any approved plans so that you can easily navigate from sheet to sheet using the table of contents as well. So that'll be inserted in there for you as well. Now, the last thing I want to point out is that come Monday, let's see, let me go back to my search records. Come Monday, any of your existing plan reviews that are already approved or any that are in progress that Danae and Letitia and Renee were referring to earlier, once approved, or if they're already approved, will now have this additional submittal link available to you. So when you're ready to submit a deferred submittal, a revision to approved plans, and as-built to a plan review that was approved or submitted prior to our launch on April 5th, you can reach out to your contact in the respective department and discuss how you want to go about submitting that additional submittal. You may get the go-ahead to go do it digitally, and that would be preferred. But for the first revision that you might submit, it may be requested of you from the department to submit a full plan set so we can have the full set of plans digitally in addition to your revisions. So you'll want to communicate and work that out with the respective department. And Kimberly, that's the entirety of the agenda that I wanted to walk through during our training.
Okay, well, with that, thank you very much, Seth, for the great presentation. And thank you to all of our attendees for some really great questions. We really appreciate that. It helps us to move forward and get you the data and the information that you need to make this a successful launch. Again, the launch date is Monday, April 5th. And please reach out to us at the city here if you have any other questions or comments that you would like to provide. We'd be more than happy to get back with you and help you through this process. Thank you to our panelists. You did a great job today. And we look forward to this great enhancements to the city of Moreno Valley. Thank you.